Genesis chapter 26, verse 34, as we covered Genesis 26 last week, but left off the last two verses because they, for the most part, will go along with chapter 27, which we hope to spend the bulk of our time in this evening. And some point out that you could see Esau's carnality in these verses as well, knowing that he no doubt knew the story of his father and mother's marriage and the great lengths to what they went to, or to which Abraham went to get Isaac a husband, or a wife, rather. And also in verse 35, we see that it's a grief of mind unto both the parents. Verse 34, Esau was 40 years old when he took the wife Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. So they're marrying Hittites here, and they are a grief of mind unto Isaac and Rebekah. And some think that it's likely that these wives were taken among those that were high-ranking leaders of the Hittites to try and strengthen his power and influence there. But we can also say we can't chalk this up to, making a youthful decision on the spur of the moment. He's 40 years old,
I just looked, he was the same age as his dad was when his dad.
Yeah.
That was what I wondered. Whether his dad was dragging his feet or he just didn't want to wait around.
Yeah, and I would assume, though we're not told explicitly, but we would assume these are his first wives, though we're not really told. We have to make a few assumptions as we read along here. But we shall see how things play out. And we're not making, these character decisions based merely upon what we think, or, hey, maybe you shouldn't have done that. But the book of Hebrews tells us that his character was less than stellar, and, we see that in other places as well. We sometimes might have trouble with that. Hebrews 12:16, lest there be any fornicator, profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. Moving into chapter 27, we'll read the first 5 verses here. And it came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son and said unto him, My son. He said unto him, Behold, here am I. He said, Behold now, I am old, I know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, thy bow, go out to the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meat, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, and that my soul may bless thee before I die. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison, and to bring it. So we're entering this familiar plan or scheme or problem that we're coming upon here. And we find here that he's going and telling Esau to go and get some food out of the that he hunts, and some venison because he loves that meat so much. However, we wonder how much he really loved the meat, because Rebekah is able to make the goat taste just like it, and he could not tell the difference. And there is, as we've spoken before, we might tend to look at Esau as many times I've heard it referred, he's the man's man, and Jacob's kind of the girly man, and we really don't like Jacob that well, but God sort of says we have to, and but that's an improper way of looking at things. Jacob is And where it calls Jacob a plain man in Genesis 25 and verse 27, the word there that they're translating as plain is the same word that they translate for Noah as perfect. Doing perhaps, I will not question the translator's motives, but be that as it may, and he dwells in tents, which is pretty much what his father did, Jacob does, and it's pretty much what his father Isaac did, and it's pretty much what his grandfather Abraham did. As we referenced when we went over chapter 25, the other reference we find to hunter is Nimrod.
Yeah.
This isn't necessarily something where we want to be. And verse 28 of chapter 25, Isaac loved Esau because he was so godly. Actually, it doesn't say that. It says because he ate his venison. And that's regrettable that it would fall to that. And we also know that previous to this, I don't have a reference off the top of my head here, but we know that when they were yet in the womb, when they were twins inside of Rebekah, God said that the younger, or the older, will serve the younger. And it seems as if Isaac is trying or attempting to thwart that. And that's a problem. And notice that he doesn't necessarily tell Rebekah what's going on here. Verse 5 tells us Rebekah heard it, perhaps overheard. He's saying, I'm going to bless you before I die. He doesn't, tell anyone else. But verse 6 through 10, Rebekah then hears this, and then spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison, make me savory meat that I may eat, and bless thee before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to that which I command thee. Go now to the flock, and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And thou shalt bring it to thy father, that he may eat, and he may bless thee before his death. So we see Rebekah acting immediately as soon as she finds this out. As you think about being in that situation, I could see myself having a bit of indecision. Wow, what's going on here? I'm not sure you should be.
You got to remember, she's related to Laban.
Yeah, I'm not sure I should be doing that. But what we do know is that Rebekah made up her mind quickly on when she got married. That's kind of strange. Somebody comes, do you want to leave now? Yeah, let's go. And so they went, and they left. Well, yeah, she is related to Laban, but on the other hand, we tend to look at that, but we overlook Isaac sinning here by giving the blessing to Esau, which I've never really thought about that or looked at that. Really, it's just.
Well, the other thing was Isaac knowing of this deal that was struck between Jacob and Esau.
Well, most think that that wouldn't have been a secret for a long period of time. We're not really. I don't know of the time frame previous to this, but there is believed. He got married in the previous chapter when he was 40, and it, by all accounts, happened before that. How old they are now here in verse 1, it says he's ready to die, but in reality he lived 40 to, some people think, 50 more years.
He actually was almost alive. He was still alive after Jacob came back.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
his 2 wives, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he lived a long time which always made me question how sick he really was here. But I mean, he did speak truth that he doesn't know when he's going to die. I mean, that's true. You know, we could say that whether we're 19 or 79, if we made it 79. But it's also believed that Jacob and Esau here were, you know, they were quite a bit farther along than 40. It's not really known for certain, though, as being able to nail it down. But I have not encountered anything that would have thought that they wouldn't have known, you know, but it was rather common knowledge.
Well, doesn't it kind of say the way it happened is regardless of what Isaac tried to do there, God wasn't going to be circumvented, and Jacob still come by the birthright that he was promised.
Yeah, you know, that's something the idea, well, they're trying to do, it would appear, you know, in her defense, you could argue that she's trying to do what she knows God has said is going to happen.
Because they don't refer to the action as she does as anything evil.
Right.
Or anything
In
like
no place in the Bible are we going to find them really, you know, frowned upon in any way for doing this. Verse 17 of Hebrews 12 is quite interesting. Also speaking of Esau, you know that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. That's quite frightening language, that he was seeking it, but could not find it.
No, would there have been any kind of precedent for Jacob with the sending Esau out for the southern meal? That's always just kind of seems strange to me. You know, cook me a meal before I bless you. It's just.
Well,
would that have been a cultural thing?
Well, they would, lots of times in dealing with covenants or blessings like that, they would, you have a meal that's sort of like, not thinking of the proper term here, but that signifies or makes it real or
Like Jesus did it.
authentic. Yeah, in their culture, lots of times meals were, and even you can see that in Galatians 2, where they have the disagreement, Peter, Paul, and that idea, and withdrawing. And what was the big? Well, it was table. They were, who can I eat with? Which that was a big deal for Jewish people because they couldn't. Or they could, but they had, they had the extra rules that they had added so that they wouldn't break the rules that God set up, and so they couldn't even, don't fall into idolatry. Well, I ain't even going to talk to them. So that's really where the table fell. But yeah, it was a big deal for eating in dealing with a blessing or a covenant type thing, which is pretty much what we've got going on here. But it's a little different in in our day. It's I do think that still eating together with people does create a bond type thing. I think it's something that's probably overlooked a lot. But for a covenant or something that we're going to do, we don't think of it like that. We think, well, you got to sign this piece of paper, and if you don't, then we're going to go to court, and the lawyers are going. And it's like, but for them doing this, it was pretty much everything. But yeah, she's acting quickly. She does this, and it's believed that she probably had this idea. Did she? We're not told. There's tons of stuff we're not told here in their lives. Had she been urging Isaac to bless Jacob, and they have disagreement over that? We're told that he loved Esau because of the meat. It says she loved Jacob. And therefore, a lot of times people look at that, he's like the mama's boy, and he's a sissy, and we don't like him. But in reality, well, that's who God loves. I mean, that's some pretty difficult things for us to deal with there. But
it doesn't call him mama's boy, though.
No, it doesn't. That's merely what we typically, and I'm not saying everybody does that. I'm just saying that I've even heard that. That Esau's the man's man. He's this tough hunter. But the fact is, there was really no need to hunt because they had all the animals they needed right there. And in reality, you could make the argument that he's being somebody that just loves to go out and play instead of assuming the proper role of leadership,
Just glorifying killing, though, really. You're not killing
And,
to eat, you're killing for the sport of it, which is glorifying it.
Well, they kind of like the person of Gaston in the movie Beauty and the Beast. Because that's kind of what he was going for. No one can put Gaston.
Yeah.
No one drinks beer like Gaston. No one can do anything like, and that may have been what you're getting at there with feeling more about Esau.
Yeah.
That kind of a man.
Yeah, I think and it's pathetic that we commonly have that interpretation in church. That's a world's, concept that this man that can do great things like that, And another argument is the idea that she was doing this because, she was trying to open up Isaac's eyes to what was going on, and that she's willing and Jacob is willing to cost themselves the love of half their family to try and open his eyes to do what God has said to do. That's one possible interpretation. I'm not necessarily saying that's the one I would endorse or that that's what is correct, but that's one that would give them the benefit of the doubt. If he could be made to realize that God's will is so important to me, as Rebecca might speak, that God's will is so important to me that I'm willing to do this because this is what's right. All right, verse 11 through 17. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, "Behold, Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father peradventure will feel me, and shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing." His mother said unto him, "Upon me be thy curse, my son. Only obey my voice, and go fetch me them." He went and fetched, and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them upon Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands, and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savory meat and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So here again has been this passage has been used, that Jacob is a soft person that isn't to be liked in any way because he's not a hairy man. And of course, I don't either, but it is often, or has been in my experience, put forth. Obviously, the amount of hair a man has little to do with how much God, or how much they love God, or how much God,
It sounds like Jacob was a well-groomed individual.
Yeah, that could be.
Into all that other
He may not
stuff.
have been a smelly one either. He smelled like sheep, and Esau smelled like the open fresh air.
Yeah. But he says, he states he doesn't want to do it, and but she says, "The curse be upon me," and so he goes and does it. This idea here, goodly raiment in verse 15, could be referring to, and many ancient Hebrew commentators believed it was referring to what would be thought of as priestly garments for the family that would be given to the patriarch.
Who was Esau?
Right, and that would be involved with this blessing, because this blessing wasn't necessarily as much with material, though that was involved, but really of authority and leadership and spiritual leadership and things of that. So, that's very important that that would be involved there, if that is exactly what it's getting at. It's many will refer to that. The priest-in-law had holy garments to minister in Exodus 28, and It says, whether the firstborn before the law had such to minister in is not certain, but it is probable by this example. And, well, it says, for they had common garments. Why did not Esau himself or his wives keep them? Well, if this be the case, it's likely because he disdained them. And, we've seen it over and over. As I read from Hebrews there, fornicator, profane person, sells his birthright, and, that was not a common thing to be giving up for a small meal. And he took it, and his clothing and his hands and everything would be like Esau now. And what the sight was not a problem because Isaac can't see, and he would have to speak, and his voice was not Esau's. 18 through 25 of chapter 27. And he came into his father and said, my father, he said, here am I. Who art thou, my son? Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, and pray thee, sit, and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, how is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? He said, because the Lord thy God brought it to me. And Isaac said unto Jacob, come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. And Jacob went near unto Isaac his father. He felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him, and he said, art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. He brought it near to him. He did eat. He brought him wine, and he drank. All right, when he enters here, you would imagine, tried to speak like Esau, but if he did, he didn't do a successful job of trying to get that across. But Isaac is expecting Esau. He could smell, he could feel that it felt like Esau. And even after he feels and listens and all that, he still asks him, he's like, are you, who are you? And he's like, I am, are you Esau or not? And he said, I am. And,
So does that lend weight to him possibly trying to do something without Jacob knowing, or with Jacob knowing? Why would he be concerned? Why would he even bring it up?
Yeah, good point. I think my contention is, we're not told here, but my contention is, they were going behind the back. I view that
Father, son,
that Isaac is
yeah.
not doing what he should be doing. He's not doing what God has said, and the reasons for that seem trivial to me, and I don't understand them. How you could love a certain meal that much, or you just have an affinity, I guess. I don't know.
Or a firstborn.
Yeah, I don't know. I think without a doubt he was doing something that, I think he went behind Rebecca and wanted to make sure that she didn't hear, but she did overhear.
Well, it just reads like that
Yeah.
to me. When you read
Yeah.
it, it's like, why is he suspicious of this, first of all? And if he is suspicious of this, why does he go ahead with it? And,
Right. Right, yeah.
It's almost like he's in a rushed time frame kind of a thing. Well, let's get this thing done and over with.
Before your mom gets it done.
Yeah, that's another factor too, whether or not, we're trying, they're both in a hurry. That's the fact,
Right,
there's
that's
two
what
sides
I mean.
are,
Both sides are in a hurry to get this thing done.
yeah, because obviously Rebecca and Jacob are in a hurry because, what if Esau comes back right now? We're in a real fix here.
Yeah.
And of course the other side, because they most likely don't want the other side to find out what's going on. Isaac and Esau do not want Rebecca and Jacob to figure out what's going on. So yeah, that's a good point that I hadn't really thought about. You know, the trepidation that he would have. You know, he's not only concerned about being tricked here, but the idea that boy, I'm tricking somebody, and which I know I shouldn't be doing. Doing something that, you know, by the custom is acceptable, that the oldest gets this, but we know many, many times it didn't work out that way in the biblical pattern. You know, we've covered that.
Well, I think he definitely at this point would have known how much, like you said, spiritual authority goes along with it, and he would know that his eldest son was not up to the task of taking that on. To be the
Yeah.
one to
Especially
spiritually lead the-
especially since he married Hittite
Yeah.
women
Right.
and foul women to start with. I mean,
Yeah, it just reeks
it
of.
just reeks of trying to be a
And he probably
deceiver.
knows how his father sent his servant to go get a woman of his own clan for himself, so he knows that is.
Maybe that's part of the
important.
reason Esau ended up doing what he did, because his dad was dragging his feet about finding somebody. I mean, that goes back to that thought too.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I was thinking about was how much this rivalry between sibling and parent carries on down. We know, you might want to jump ahead, but it carries on into Jacob's family because you know, it wasn't until Rachel had kids that that he really had one that he liked better than all the other 10 that Leah had given him.
Right. Yeah. Of course, we see what could only be classified as lies within this section here.
I am.
You know, it says, why is it that God did not rebuke Jacob? You know, why, you know, we don't, you know, we see it and we say, well, you're not supposed to do that. But we're not told in Scripture where, you know, they're not, you know, demeaned or, you know, you know, told.
But I do think that he got his fair punishment when he went against his uncle Laban.
Yeah.
He met his match, and I think maybe that's why God allowed it to happen, was to teach him, try and teach him a lesson, you know, because it wasn't, what was it? It wasn't until Jacob wrestled all night with the Lord before he really actually changed his heart,
Right.
Yeah.
and things like that. So a lot of this is sometimes maybe the way God allows things.
And there's a lot of people that, you know, have that, you know, view that was, you know, that it was punish, you know, you know, that was a sort of a judgment against him. There is the idea here that there are, you know, you're not supposed to deceive people, but there are times when it may be acceptable. Now, I can think of a couple of places where it would be acceptable in my life. You know, typically, you know, we could imagine if we're put in a situation where, you know, somebody's life is in danger, you know, and I know, and you asked me, I'm going to lie to you. You know, you know, if we're protecting life, that's a place.
There's also, I don't know, I think you can.
There's
I
lying
think
and
when you come
withholding.
down to this, it comes down to an individual between themselves and God.
Yeah.
You know, when I think about the stories of the people, for example, the 10 booms, and their,
Yeah.
you know, what Betsy and Corey, they both were Christians and they both would take a stand, but the one would lie and the one would not. You know.
We and the you know I'm not going to tell anybody to lie, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and
Right.
I'm going to lie through my teeth. You know, when it comes to life, and that, you know, that's a, you know, go back to ethics class, and then you know, all sorts of questions that you're not really going to answer completely. We do know that when, you know, like the Hebrew midwives or the Egyptians there in Egypt, and you know, they lied, and they were actually blessed for it. Of course, there's Rahab and that situation as well. You know, it's Yeah, I do think that that's a situation you have to come to grips with, I suppose, for each person. And it's probably something you might have to wrestle with in your own life, depending upon what our lives hold for us, as if prophecy is continually fulfilled in our lifetimes. And then you also wrestle with the idea of Romans 13 and, doing what the government wants you to do. And, but at the same time, I have real trouble or problems, just blindly submitting to everything. I think when we blindly, when we use Romans 13 in that way, that we make it seem silly to me. And that states, rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Okay. Well, if you're going around chopping people's heads off for no reason other than the fact that they believe in Jesus Christ, that's not a good work. That's an evil work. Where do we come up with the idea of what's good and what's evil?
Jesus stood up against the system himself in his own time.
Yeah.
They crucified him. If he'd obeyed the law and shut up, he wouldn't have had to die. But he still, regardless, flaunted the law because he needed to put the truth out.
Yeah, we've had it pretty easy in our lives, but
I wouldn't say so.
well, compared to people in China or Vietnam, I've got it pretty easy. Is what I would say.
Small version.
Yeah,
So religious.
to the situation. And of course, we don't want to use this situation just to with Jacob and Isaac and Rebekah and Esau. They deceive here, they lie, and we could turn that on its head and just say, just go around lying anytime we want, saying, well, God said that this is for the better good, and therefore, we're trying to make things. We would need to be very careful about using something like that. And
It's also interesting, though, that Jacob and Esau, even though Esau was the older, they're twins. That means they're basically born at the same time.
Yeah.
So by passing on the birthright, genetically speaking, you didn't change anything.
Yeah.
You're both born at the same time, at the same place, the same genome, however that works. So God doesn't really go out change the history of the firstborn getting what he's supposed to have.
Yeah.
He just chooses the order of the first. It's the same thing they do.
Interesting that obviously God could have,
Put two different births and
he
different.
could have dealt, he could have had Jacob born first, but he chose, there's a multitude of reasons why you could think that he did that. One of the things that comes to my mind is testing people, see how you're, if you're going to do what's right or not.
Just like Cain and Abel.
Yeah. All right. These instances indicate rare exceptions to, disobeying, if you want to argue that you're allowed to do, and for me, I believe one of those is life. And we know that there's also, that was referenced in our prayer request for the pastor that's in prison, I guess you would say, that's involved in it was the two lesbians and a child, and he helped, and then one of them got saved, and he helped them escape to a country in Central America, but he refuses to testify about it. So right now he's headed for prison for about 3 years. So instead of lying, he hasn't chosen to, he just refuses to testify.
So there's a difference between lying and not telling,
And that's not a case that we could argue on that's getting down to.
Exactly, that's a proof.
And it wasn't a life and death thing either, so they had no business.
It's like a doctor refusing to give parent or patient privileged information.
And you know, that's not a
Judge's
life
time.
issue. It's, you know, so you have to work those things out in your own life. I think. I don't think he's done anything. I mean, I would hope I would have the strength to do what he's done, but I don't know. Difficult things. But anyway, you do take those, as was referenced previous, those situations one by one and see how we deal with them.
Now, I've had goat, and I've also eaten venison, and I don't believe there's any way that someone could fool me with which one tasted whether they tasted the same.
You get the right cook, you can be fooled.
Rebecca has
I've
talents,
done it with my mom. She hates venison.
culinary talents beyond
You eat
measure.
venison, you tell her it's beef. She never knows.
Well, and
She's just
also
like Isaac.
the idea, you know, if he's out there hunting the venison, how large a land swath did they have? And the
You probably
goat's
same thing.
appetite may have been, you
Same
know,
with
what it
deer.
ate could have been the exact same thing, depending
deer,
upon how
yeah.
big of a swath of area they were in. So, but all I'll say is, you haven't had Rebecca cooking, I don't.
Well, I have eaten some of that from that country, a dish with goat in it, and I will say that it does a pretty good job of hiding that goat taste.
Let's read 26 through 29 and close after that. And his father Isaac said to him, "Come near now and kiss me, my son." And he came near, kissed him. He smelled the smell of his raiment and blessed him and said, "See, the smell of my son is as the smell of the field which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore God give thee of the dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee." All right, this is very similar to blessings from Abraham, and you know what God gave to Abraham, what Abraham gave to Isaac, and what he stated to them there. We find this stated in Genesis 12, verses 2 and 3, and you know it's famous. I mean, it's still quoted, it's still testified to in regards to the Jewish people. But notice that he states here, you know, what he does. And curses be he that curseth thee, blessed he that blesseth thee. But note what he also states: "Be Lord over thy brethren, let thy mother's sons bow down to thee." We got a serious problem here,
Yeah.
because this is he thinks he's talking to Esau, and this is a direct contradiction to Genesis 25:23. The elder shall serve the younger. So yeah, we've got a serious
I could see where this thought of
problem.
even may have been husband and wife disagreement going on here.
Yeah. But the real problem is, you know, if the husband and the wife disagree, you know, I love my son's food, you know, so I love him better. I love the part of the matter is what God had stated, and that he's going against that and disagreeing
Yeah.
with that, and that is
Not gonna
Not-
work. It always
Yeah,
goes
that's
God's
right.
way,
It-
no matter
And
what
that
you
may
do.
that may too been why Jacob didn't get spanked so quickly in our eyes.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder why God didn't honk with the lightning bolt thing, because
He was doing what God says. Like I said, no matter
yeah,
what
that
you
was the
try.
way God wanted it anyway.
Exactly.
He didn't necessarily want him to do it this way. but
right,
This was his will.
right, yeah.
Jacob was just obeying both his mother, and he probably heard the prophecy too. And
Yeah, I think
You
no
need to
doubt that he would have
disrespect
known
your
of it. And yeah, I do think that's why, you know, that they were just, you know, doing what they knew was going to occur, you know, so as we've stated, be careful if we decide to use the same methods, and I think we've hit on that in the
I'm sure that our
exceptions.
word we got was from a prophet, not a false prophet.
Right. The exceptions that are may be required or necessary there, and the idea that You know, and how that might play into end time prophecy in any way. Because, you know, as I've stated many times when we went over Revelation, the prophecies cannot come to pass as long as the American people have the liberties they do right now. You can't have somebody ruling over somebody, over the whole world, if people have freedoms such as we do. So,
What I think is interesting about this
It's an
section
illusion.
is Isaac Smithson again.
what?
Isaac Smithson.
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
It's like, this isn't right. It sounds like
The
chase
voice
out,
is
you
what
know?
gave him off. Right? Well, that's what I think the whole thing was. Though we heard the voice, but his eyes were, you know,
He's like,
God blinded him.
you know, this really can't be happening. This is Jacob. Gotta make sure this is Esau.
Well, and what they think they're, you know, that,
He wasn't totally blind either, though. He could see, he just couldn't make out things. Because why even bother putting goodly raiment on him? And the fur, maybe he could feel that, but the raiment, he couldn't see if he was actually totally blind. He couldn't see nothing. He
Well,
probably could see colors, but that was about it. Yeah, he was legally blind, what we call
Well,
today.
some people would say here that these were put aside and had special herbs or something, so that's why they would smell like that, if they were indeed the special clothes that they likely were. But
I think he was talking about the furs that he was wearing. They smelled
Yeah.
like fresh tanned skin and stuff, you know. Because anybody's worked around skinny and taxidermy, whatever, you know, even if it's the natural stuff that you don't see nowadays, still had a smell. Back in the old days, you could tighten it out as best you could and last better than it did, but it still had a smell. It wasn't disinfected like it was nowadays.
all right, well, let's close with a word of prayer. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your word that we can look at, and thank you for the examples that have been recorded before us, and how we may learn from them and guide our lives. And we just pray for your direction and wisdom and guidance in our lives. Pray that you'll be with us as we go from here throughout the remainder of this week. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's a wonder why Jacob went ahead, or Isaac went ahead and did it. You know, 'cause he had that much doubt in his mind.
there again, he may have been
Just in the rain, yeah,
the hurry,
fine.
yes, the hurried thing of it, you know, wasn't it?
He was trying to maybe outrun God.
Well, I'll run his wife, because I think it sounds
I
like
think
to
I'd be
me
more
that him and
concerned
his
with
wife have
God.
been discussing this, and he, you know, I'll be doggone if I'm gonna let my wife's, the son that's my wife's pet, because they apparently, that was the other thing, they apparently, both of them picked one of the two sons that was their favorite,
Yeah.
and